Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're going to completely reframe how we think about the end of our lives. We're taking what most of us see as this terrifying, kind of awkward legal chore, and we're flipping it. We're going to transform it into the absolute ultimate act of love for your family. So let's just jump right into this blueprint and see exactly how getting prepared changes literally everything.
All right, picture this for a second. You're standing at a really beautiful memorial service. You're surrounded by family, friends, and the focus is exactly where it ought to be, right? On celebrating a remarkable, well-lived life. There's tears, warm embraces, all these beautiful stories being shared. But then, as people start to linger after the service, the tone suddenly and very quietly shifts into these panicked whispers of logistical uncertainty.
You know the questions I'm talking about. They just start flying. Wait, did she have a living trust? Where on earth are the bank records? Who actually has the house keys? Literally within minutes of saying their final goodbyes, unprepared families get absolutely bombarded with these rapid-fire, overwhelming logistics. It instantly drains their energy, pulling them away from grieving and honoring their loved one, and drops them straight into total, utter confusion.
So that brings us to part one, the cost of waiting, and the real financial and emotional toll of procrastination. Man, there's a phrase we hear all the time. We thought we had more time. According to the source material we're digging into today, those 6 little words, they are hands down the most expensive words in estate planning. We put this stuff off not because it doesn't matter, but because, let's face it, it forces us to look right at some really uncomfortable realities, like aging and mortality. And just assuming we have more time has literally cost families billions of dollars and shattered countless relationships across the country. To really wrap our heads around the massive scale of this, look at this number. $84 trillion. That's trillion with a T. We are standing on the edge of the absolute biggest wealth transfer in American history. Economists are estimating that $84 trillion is going to pass down to heirs over the next couple of decades.
And hey, we aren't just talking about liquid cash here. We're talking about the whole shebang. Family businesses, childhood homes, lifelong retirement savings, cherished heirlooms, and even generational values. But here's the wild part. Despite these massive, literally life-altering stakes, an astonishing number of Americans are still walking around entirely unprepared, like lacking even a basic will or updated beneficiary designations. Crazy, right?
Let's move right into our next section, A Tale of Two Families, to see exactly how preparation really makes all the difference.
To show you why getting prepared is way more about responsibility than actual wealth, let's look at a composite story of 2 families. On paper, they look identical. Same kind of homes, similar savings, same deep love for their kids. But look at what they actually did. Family A, they took just one single Saturday to get their documents in order, setting up a trust, signing powers of attorney, and they actually sat down and talked with their kids. Family B, on the other hand, well, they let the business of life, work, and endless home projects take the wheel. They always meant to get around to it, but never did, leaving them with absolutely zero designated authority in place.
Now let's look at how those choices played out. When tragedy struck Family B totally out of the blue with a stroke, bam, immediate crisis. Bills piled up fast, and the siblings started fighting because, honestly, they had no roadmap. Now contrast that with Family A when their dad passed away. Was there profound grief? Of course. But was there confusion? No way. The kids knew exactly where the documents were, so all their energy went into just comforting each other. The difference between these 2 scenarios wasn't how smart they were or how much money they made. It literally all came down to who took a few hours to prepare. Which naturally leads us right into planning versus probate, where we've got to demystify the legal mechanics that scares so many folks away from even starting. Look, so much of this procrastination comes from just plain fear of the legal system. But at the end of the day, probate is just the court-supervised legal process used to settle an estate. When you strip away all that intimidating legal jargon, it's really just a court procedure. The catch? It's a procedure that can be super public, agonizingly slow, sometimes dragging on for many months, and ridiculously expensive once you factor in statutory attorney fees and appraisals. But honestly, the real danger of probate isn't the pile of paperwork, it's the human impact. See, while an estate is locked up in the courts, the rest of the world doesn't just hit pause. Mortgages and insurance premiums, they still need to be paid. The utility bills keep racking up. Critical decisions are just left hanging in limbo. So now you've got these grieving families forced to juggle all these bills while they're waiting on this massively backed up legal system to give them basic answers. It's a recipe for family emotions to run dangerously high. Thankfully, there's a really great structural workaround for this. By setting up what's called a revocable living trust, which you can kind of think of as this protective legal basket for your assets while you're still alive, you can actually help your qualifying assets completely bypass that messy probate process. It ensures everything transitions privately and efficiently. You're dramatically cutting down on unnecessary court drama, which makes a really agonizing season of life significantly less burdensome for your kids.
Next up, we need to talk about the conversation we avoid, and how we absolutely have to move past these dangerous assumptions.
Okay, here is the absolutely crucial point. The single biggest misconception in estate planning is assuming your kids already know exactly what you want. I mean, think about the practical stuff. Where are your important documents hidden? Who's your attorney? What are your specific healthcare wishes if things go south? Do you want to be buried or cremated? Have you actually sat down and talked through these super specific details with them? Or are you just kind of crossing your fingers and assuming they'll figure it out when the time comes?
Here's a truth you just can't ignore. Silence leaves room for assumptions, and assumptions, they almost always turn into disagreements. When you leave things unsaid, you're basically tossing your kids a giant jigsaw puzzle but hiding half the pieces. Those unsaid things inevitably morph into painful, drawn-out arguments between siblings who are already stressed out, grieving, and desperately lacking clear direction from you.
And that brings us to our final and honestly most important section today, an act of love. Maximizing peace of mind over financial returns.
This right here is the major pivot of our whole explainer today, because at its core, estate planning isn't really about the money. I know, shocking, right? It's not about finding complex tax loopholes or maximizing your returns. It is 100% about reducing suffering and replacing all that confusion with total confidence. It's this profound, beautiful act of love. It's designed to make sure your family spends their time actually holding one another, instead of frantically tearing apart file cabinets at midnight looking for some lost piece of paperwork.
Your true legacy isn't just a number on a bank statement. It's actually measured by that profound, deep sense of security your family feels because you chose to step up and prepare. Having a plan in place is basically how you make your voice heard, clearly and lovingly, even when you physically can't speak for yourself anymore.
I really want to leave you with this powerful final thought. The best legacy isn't simply what you leave behind. It's the burden you remove from the shoulders of those you love. So if you're 55 or older, or hey, if you're navigating this stuff with an aging parent right now, I want you to ask yourself this question. What specific burden can you take off your loved one's shoulders today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really encourage you to go ahead and take that first step toward getting prepared.